Chickson City is a children's picture book about urban agriculture. So it's this little chicken who lives on the farm but feels a little out of place there. He's got the wandering eye a bit, and he finds himself going into the city. When he gets there, he's a little jarred, he's a little thrown off, but soon he finds some kinship, some friends, and realizes that agriculture and farming can indeed happen in cities. I will confess that I am not a gardener or a farmer by any means. I can barely keep my fake plants alive. But the idea for this book stemmed from an event that I used to be involved with some years ago called the West Virginia Urban Agriculture Conference. So I was part of the marketing team for that event, and we sort of created this character-based campaign with a little chicken who wore a necktie and again felt a little off in the farm, moved to the city, and loved learning about urban farming. And the more we went with that marketing campaign, I thought, there's a children's book story in here. And there was. Everything that I write, especially in a fiction realm, tends to be set in West Virginia or involve West Virginia somehow. I mean, there's that old cliche, write what you know, which is kind of baloney, but when West Virginia does get attention in media, sometimes it can be very negative. So I try to write stories that present West Virginia and Appalachia in a positive light. This book in particular, while geographically doesn't specify that Stu lives in West Virginia, that's mentally where I had him living as I wrote the book. I feel like, are you ever too young or even too old to learn about farming and gardening? Probably not. I mean, there's so many programs out there and opportunities out there with school gardens and, education in the classroom as young as kindergarten. So I think kids can really benefit from learning about agriculture, which can be an intimidating word, right? You hear agriculture, you might think big farm, big agriculture, but it can be as small as a little container garden on your back porch or in your school garden, which a lot of kids in West Virginia are doing now in their schools. I would say don't be intimidated and literally just get your hands dirty. Figure it out. There's so many resources out there if you don't know what you're doing to help you learn how to do it successfully. But if you're just starting out, just give it a try and see what happens. I wasn't sure if I had any intention or idea of taking Stu any further than he's already been. I feel like this book, though, is his origin story, and it ends, spoiler alert, with him getting to the city and landing there. So maybe there's more to tell. What happens to him now that he's living there? So we'll see. So the idea of Stu developed out of a drawing that my collaborator came up with when we were doing the event. And it was just this little chicken who wore a necktie. We fortunately happened to find a real stuffed animal that looked exactly like the drawing that she had made. So that became Stu, and then it came time to put Stu into the book. I showed the book illustrator, Ashley Teets, what I was thinking and what the quote-unquote real Stu looked like. So she kind of took that, put her own creative flair on it, and I think she turned Stu into a beautiful character, even more so than he had been before. Stu feels a little out of place in his situation at the beginning of the book, and he takes a leap and tries something new. He finds the confidence to go out and try to make things better and find where he belongs. He does that. It's not always an easy go for him, but once he finds his groove, he learns that there are people out there like him. He finds where he belongs, and he realizes you don't have to stay where you feel a little out of place. I think there's value in that for kids. Like I said about gardening, getting your hands dirty, do the same. If you have a story in you, just sit down and write it, because that's the hardest part, even as an adult or somebody that's been doing this a while. The ideas might come easily enough. It's the sitting down and putting those ideas on paper or on your computer screen that can be very challenging. So you almost have to just force yourself, for lack of a better word, to just sit down and get that idea out. That's kind of the first step is the hardest, but once you do that, go for it and it will come.